Hey everybody, welcome back to American History with Mr. Finn. I brought you really close to the map today because we got to look at westward expansion. So, one of the big things with the westward expansion is going to be the question of what do we do about slavery, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, but first I want to give you an idea of what we're looking at, so I'm going to be a little bit off camera here. These were the original 13 colonies. They were on the coast, but now we're going to start to move westward. And one of the questions was going to be, the Ohio River, which is right here. You can't really see it gray, but follow my finger. The Ohio River right here is going to be kind of a dividing line where people are going to agree north of this, Ohio River, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, New York, and everything, is going to have slavery be illegal. Slavery will not be legal there. But south of it, in the southern colonies, which are now southern states, slavery was going to be legal. Now, the question we're getting to today is this. The Ohio River runs until this point. It meets up with the Mississippi River, which is our big river that goes down the heart of our country here. Missouri is a new state. Here it is. Here's the Mississippi River, which means the Ohio River does not keep going forever. So this border that the people were using at the time of the Ohio River, as we move further west, becomes kind of obsolete, meaning like it doesn't work anymore. The Ohio River stops right here. So what do we do about Missouri? What are we going to do here? So we are going to look at this question today, and one of our big things is, again, we're moving westward now that we have a constitution and we have everything that we normally have in our country today. All right, so hopefully you can see that close enough. It looked like you could. If not, you could follow my finger. But let's take a look at this Missouri area. So, where do we start? Missouri Compromise, huh? All right, let's go. Missouri Compromise. Missouri, that is the name of this new state, which we'll talk about in a second. The Missouri Compromise. So, Missouri. So, here is the deal. As we move west, we are going to start to make new states. We had our original 13. We started to move westward a little bit. We see Ohio and Michigan, and we'll now get into the heart of our country, like Missouri. Missouri and Kansas and all these other places. So we get to Missouri, and that's, like I said, here's the question. What do we do about slavery? Slavery, question mark. Slavery had been a major economic piece of the South, because in the South, it was a lot of plantations and growing of crops, cotton, tobacco still. All of those things were being grown in the South, and the use of slave labor was, for the Southerners, a big deal, because it meant, hey, we have all of this land, we need to, harvest all of whatever we're harvesting, and they're going to use slaves. In the North, not so much. In the North, it was a lot of independent farmers. Larger cities were in the North. I mean, large in the sense of during the time period, not like today with the size of Phoenix or anything. But you had New York City and Boston and Baltimore. And then in the Midwest, you started to see cities like Detroit pop up, which were much smaller at the time. But most people would be working around those cities in some kind of way. And it wasn't a big plantation thing where we needed slavery in the North. And so it just became kind of, illegal in the North and legal in the South. It just evolved into that. Just, no agreement, just happened to be that way. So as we start to move west, let's look at Missouri. Missouri, what do we do? Because it doesn't fall, there's no Ohio River to tell us if it's going to be a slave state or a free state. So what we are going to see with Missouri Compromise, we are going to set a line, and above that line will be free. Below, and I'm going to draw a picture too, so it makes sense when I draw the picture. Below is slave states. So any new state that comes above the line is going to be a free state. Any new state that comes below it will now be a slave state. So the picture that I usually draw, and it makes the most sense, There is a line that goes across our country. Above that line will be free states when they're made up. They don't even know about states like, Wyoming and North Dakota, South Dakota, or Texas or Arizona. They haven't even thought about making these states yet. But they know they will eventually. And as we go west, if it comes above that line, that state will be free. Slavery will not be legal there. But if a state is below that line, it will come into our country as a slave state. So you'll have free states and you'll have slave states. What could go wrong? So the Missouri Compromise basically is just an idea, how do we get through this? How do we figure out something that will solve this problem of slavery, because we don't know how we're going to do it. So there it is, the Missouri Compromise. They're going to set a line, and above the line will be free states. Below the line is going to be slave states. So as they come in, we'll just see what happens. Now here's going to be a problem. One of the problems with the Missouri Compromise is, what happens if a state comes in on beneath the line? Well, it's going to be what kind of state? It's going to be a slave state. Slavery will be legal there. But what does that mean for our government? That means that new state now has representatives that can go to Congress. It now has 2 senators that can be in Congress. They can start to have an influence over what the entire government says. So we're looking at a problem here, because what we're going to see is we need to have, every time one state comes in, if it's a free state, we need to make sure there's a slave state that comes in as well, so we can keep everything equal in our government, so that free states don't have control and or slave states don't have control based on the number of people in the government. So that's going to be an issue with the number. So we're setting ourselves up here. We're setting ourselves up into, basically, we support slave states and we support slavery. And we have another group of our country who's like, we think slavery should be illegal. And as we're going, they become suspicious of one another. Hey, we can't have too many slave states, because then they'll make our government do whatever. And they're in the South, they're thinking, hey, we can't have too many northern states, because then they'll tell us what we can and can't do. We can't have that. So slavery is becoming, or will become, an issue. Not quite at this point of the Missouri Compromise, but the solution that they come up with is not a great solution, because it opens the door for a lot of problems between the northern and the southern states when it comes to the issue of slavery. Now, we've fought that off for a little bit, right? So the question of slavery has been fought off for now. We are going to be coming back to it in a big way. But something I need to talk to you about is this. The Industrial Revolution. So the Industrial Revolution, and I want to make sure I get this in the right time period. So just so you know, we'll do this. Missouri Compromise, just so we can see, was in 1820. I want to make sure we keep our years here so you don't lose track of when things are happening. So this is 1820. The country's been around for 25, 30 years or so. And that's when we get the Missouri Compromise. Right in the middle of this, though, we have the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is going to be, let's just call it this, the start of using machine power. Because we use it in a lot of ways. Machine power, today we use machines all the time. I mean, like everything. Now we're actually in the technological age today. But the Industrial Revolution is going to be when we start to see machinery like you would think of in assembly lines, or during this time it's going to be used with water power. They're going to use coal and steam power. All of those things are going to allow for mechanisms, mechanical things to make stuff. So before this, there was no machines of any kind. Even though when I use the word machines, I'm talking very basic machines. They're going to get more complicated, as you know. But before, it was just all hands. What could you do? What could I do? I use my hands. I make something that's great. I need to make a new shirt. I made it. I made a new shirt. That's what I did. If I had to make anything, that's just what I had to do it myself with my own hands. Now we have machines that will make it for you. So we have machines. The Industrial Revolution actually starts out in textiles, of all things. Let me explain what that is. Textiles, think about it as cloth. So textiles are cloth. You could make blankets, you could make different shirts, you could spin yarn and make large pieces of fabric. That's how it begins. And it starts with like a basic thing. You would have a river, and the water would be flowing this way. And then you would have a building on the side of this river. Let me draw my water. Go in that direction. On the side of this building, you would have what's called a water wheel. And that water wheel would have grooves in it. And as the water flew, I don't even know the word, as the water travels down the river, it would hit this water wheel, causing it to spin this direction. And this, wheel would be rotating, but connected to the middle of it would be a pipe that would go into the building, and that pipe would then churn based on the power that the water was spinning, and so it would spin, and that would operate these large things called looms, which the looms are not important, but the point is, understand this. A loom basically takes, cotton, straw, yarn, and then works to make it into a sheet of like fabric or cloth. And that's how it starts. And so this would be made out of, these early looms would be made out of wood, and they would just be making cloth. However, who didn't have to do it? Me, you, the person who would normally be making that by hand now doesn't have to. There is a machine that is making this. So we can now explode in the textile, mill. And that is what these are called. So it'd be called mills. And they start to pop up all in the north. But there's a couple of bad things and good things that happen with this. Now, before we use this cotton, and we would make, cloth out of this cotton, and it would take a while because we would have to do it. However, what did I just say? The Industrial Revolution is beginning. We're going to talk about this a lot because it's the whole 1800s. This actually starts in the late 1700s. So we're getting to this a little bit after the Missouri Compromise. But the Industrial Revolution is allowing machines to start to work for us instead of us doing the work. Now, instead of taking a long time to make this cloth, I can do it much faster. So if I can do it much faster, I'm leading you to something. The question is going to be, because of these mills, what do we need more of? What do we make cloth out of? We make cloth out of cotton. So if we can start to make cloth a lot faster, we're going to start to need a lot more what? You guessed it. This has to go up. We need more. We need more cotton. Now this is where we follow me on this. This is not a good thing. We think this is Industrial Revolution, fantastic. You can make a lot of different shirts. You can do different patterns now, different colors, different all this other stuff. This is fantastic. You don't got to wait, a month to get one shirt. You can just have a bunch of shirts. But the fact that we need more cotton means that there's a demand for cotton. We want more cotton. And the people who grow cotton say, hey, cool, I'll grow more cotton. So cotton is grown more. So you start to grow more. And where does cotton grow? In the South. And so the people in the South start to have these huge plantations where all they grow is cotton, because they're like, they need more and more cotton up in the North. They're making more textile mills. They're making more fabric. We need to get them more cotton. We can make so much money if we just grow more cotton. So they grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. But this is the problem, and I don't know if you see where I'm going with this yet. But how did I say we pick that cotton? Cotton is a plant. So you'll see it. It grows, and then there'll be that cotton at the edge, and you have to pick the cotton off of the plant, and then there are seeds in the cotton. So not only do you have to pick that cotton off the plant, you also then have to take the seeds out of the cotton fibers. do we use for this? Unfortunately, in that time period, if we do this, we are now going to need, or the Southerners will say, we need more slaves. And it's not good. Slavery is not a good thing, obviously. And the people during this time period, they're not thinking about human rights and what is right and what is wrong and philosophical things like that. They're only thinking about, hey, I can make more money if I grow more cotton. If I grow more cotton, I can get it picked faster if I have more slaves. If more slaves are there, they're working and they can get it done faster. And so this is going to end up being a negative because, as we know today, slavery is obviously wrong. So we don't want things happening that will make it so people want more slaves. This is a negative thing that has ended up happening here. And we're also going to see the creation of... You know what? Let me get to it. I might as well tell you real quick. During this revolution, new inventions come out. I can do this pretty quick. And since I'm on the topic, I just want to get to it. Something called the cotton gin. Because it's right on topic, so if it goes a little bit long, just stay with me for a second. So the cotton gin is another example of how slavery is going to be impacted based on new inventions of the Industrial Revolution. The cotton gin is invented by Eli Whitney. Eli Whitney, this could be on the quiz, by the way. Eli Whitney invents cotton gin. What the cotton gin does is a machine that you put cotton into. Remember, like I just said, if you pick cotton, it has little seeds in it, so it takes a long time to pick these seeds out. It's crazy. But the cotton gin means you can just throw the cotton in, and it takes the seeds out for you. So the cotton gin takes the seeds out of cotton. All right? So this is another bad thing. So let me explain why this is bad. It takes the seeds out of cotton for you. Before, you needed a lot of slaves their part of the process would be to take the seeds out of the cotton. Now you have this cotton gin where one person can rotate this, hammer, and or crank, and the cotton just goes through and it takes the seeds out for you, and you're left with cotton with no seeds in it. It's crazy. In fact, the numbers are insane. You could produce, 10 times more with this. 10 times more. One person. It would take, 1 pound would be 1 day. And now they're doing, 10 times that amount. Like, it is crazy how much more cotton they can clean, and you need less slaves to be in that process. You can use more slaves to do it out in the field. So all of these new inventions of the time period are leading towards slavery being more valued, an increase of slavery wanted. All of this is happening in the South. And in the North, people are starting to, move away from slavery, and they had been. And so you're starting to see even more of a divide between the North and the South. And these are just some of the reasons for it. Next class, we'll look at the Industrial Revolution a little bit more and the steam power and new inventions like steam ships and railroads and things like that. But the important thing for today is to understand this. As we're moving into the 1800s, 1820s, 1830s, you are going to see that the North and the South are going to start to go in different directions, and they're going to get further away from each other, and it's going to cause conflict between the two. So, on that note, I want these notes turned in today, the notes that we took, for participation and attendance purposes. You guys have been doing a fantastic job. Everyone's participating. I love to see it, and I look forward to seeing you next class.